وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أم اتخذ مما يخلق بنات وأصفاكم بالبنين وإذا بشر أحدهم بما ضرب للرحمن مثلا ظل وجهه مسودا وهو كظيم أومن ينشأ في الحلية وهو في الخصام غير مبين وجعلوا الملائكة الذين هم عباد الرحمن إناثا أشهدوا خلقهم ستكتب شهادتهم ويسألون وقالوا لو شاء الرحمن ما عبدناهم ما لهم بذلك من علم إن هم إلا يخرصون أم آتيناهم كتابا من قبله فهم به مستمسكون بل قالوا إنا وجدنا آباءنا على أمة وإنا على آثارهم مهتدون وكذلك ما أرسلنا من قبلك في قرية من نذير إلا قال مترفوها إنا وجدنا آباءنا على أمة وإنا على آثارهم مقتدون قال أولو جئتكم بأهدى مما وجدتم عليه آباءكم قالوا إنا بما أرسلتم به كافرون فانتقمنا منهم فانظر كيف كان عاقبة المكذبين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وإذ قال إبراهيم لأبيه وقومه إنني براء مما تعبدون إلا الذي فطرني فإنه سيهدين وجعلها كلمة باقية في عقبه لعلهم يرجعون بل متعت هؤلاء وآباءهم حتى جاءهم الحق ورسول مبين ولما جاءهم الحق قالوا هذا سحر وإنا به كافرون وقالوا لولا نزل هذا القرآن على رجل من القريتين عظيم أهم يقسمون رحمة ربك نحن قسمنا بينهم معيشتهم في الحياة الدنيا ورفعنا بعضهم فوق بعض درجات ليتخذ بعضهم بعضا سخريا ورحمة ربك خير مما يجمعون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Um, Brother Mubin Magda, his father, Muhammad Iqbal Aziz Magda, passed away overseas. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to pardon and forgive him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to illuminate his grave. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow him to benefit from all of the good deeds that he did. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to resurrect him amongst the awliya and the sulaha and the anbiya, and to reunite him with his entire family underneath the shade of Allah's throne, to grant him entrance into paradise without any account or hisab. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all of this for this brother, and also for all of our loved ones, family members and friends who have moved on. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also to allow us to die with iman and la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. After the Sunnah and Witr, we are going to continue the discussion of the Battle of Mu'tah that happened in the month of Jumadul Awwal in the 8th year after Hijrah. Did you know that after Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu, after his strategic retreat and rescue of that cavalry from being totally annihilated, after returning to Medina, a few days later, there were some criticisms that started to spread, either from the munafiqeen in the form of a smear, or by other Sahaba who viewed this retreat as running away from the battlefield. And some even had to experience a comment in public being made to them, Ya Farrar, hey fugitive, hey runaway. Afarartum an sabilillah, you ran away from the path of God. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon receiving this, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he addressed this issue and nipped it right in the bud. We're going to talk about that tonight, and I'm also going to take you all to the area of Mu'tah where this battle took place, and also where Zayd, Ja'far, and Abdullah ibn Rawaha radiallahu anhum's graves are located or assumed to be located. So we're going to visit all that tonight, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And also, starting tomorrow morning, Fajr will be at 6:30. All right, 6:30 a.m. inshallah. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmadu nusalli ala rasulihil kareem amma ba'd. So I know yesterday I already covered how the battle unfolded and how Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu was able to strategically bring the army back. But as I was reading and watching and just digging deeper, I wanted to go back a little bit and give you a picture of that'll help us understand the situation. Because I mean, we are dealing with the numbers of 3,000 versus 100,000 or 200,000. Okay. Now, obviously, we know that the victory and the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lies in spiritual strength, not numerical numbers. But just to give us an understanding of what was going on. Okay, so they reached a point in Ma'an where they received intelligence that the Byzantines are coming towards us. They're coming with these many numbers. They stopped for 2 days to decide what they're going to do. Remember, they reached a point where either they're going to send a messenger to the Prophet ﷺ to get further instructions, or what should we do? Wait for reinforcements. And then Abdullah ibn Rawaha radiallahu anhu was the one who basically, he raised the morale and the courage of the Muslim army to continue and proceed. Okay? Now, I want you to understand this picture right here. So the green arrow is where they had stopped. They spent 2 days there, then they moved forward to Mu'ta. Busra is on top of that red arrow. That's where the Ghassanid forces were coming from. Al-Quds, not Jerusalem, Al-Quds is where the Byzantine reinforcements were coming from. And you see the little water in between? That's the Dead Sea. Okay? Now, moving forward, I want you to see this entire area in this red. Okay? Confronting the enemies in an open field would serve as a big disadvantage to the Muslim army, resulting in the entire cavalry exposed from all sides. If you have 100,000, okay, in formation, and 3,000, okay? Now, it is highly likely that 100,000 wouldn't be all lined up in one formation, okay? They are sent in waves. The armies are sent in waves. You don't just send 100,000, okay? Unless you just want to pulverize them. But if the battle would have happened anywhere here, the Muslim army, it would be easy to surround them, okay? Because there's nothing to protect them from the back. For example, let's go to the Battle of Uhud. And the Battle of Uhud, the Muslims were in this little enclave, okay? There was the little hill that the archers were on, and they were in the mouth of Uhud. So the Quraysh had only one way that they could approach and confront the Muslims, which was head on. Okay. Khalid ibn Walid tried. He tried to go around, remember? And he did have some success in that. Now, I want you to look at the terrain. Naman is where they were. Mu'ta is here. You see all of this terrain? This is a terrain map from Google. You see all this mountain range? Okay? So, and you see Mu'ta? What's on this side of Mu'ta? Mountainous area, hilly area. What's on this side? Okay? So, setting up camp in a small plain in Mu'ta did not allow all the Byzantine forces to come and engage with the Muslim cavalry. They set up in such a narrow place, okay, that it did not allow for the entire Byzantine force to form, to assume formation. Hence, a portion of the enemy's army met face to face, while the rest of the army was camped around their home base. Okay? The home base, that's where the commanders are, that's where all the supplies are, that's where all the water is. You're not going to send everyone in to battle. So you see how strategic this was? To lure them into this mountainous area. They were supposed to go to Busra. But what did they do? They went straight for the straight for the mountains, okay, straight for this mountainous area. And then I shared about how the battle began. Now, there's some details that I was able to dig out about Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu, okay, about his strategy. Now, Khalid knew that if the battle went on like this, there was no way the Muslims would last without taking heavy casualties or possible annihilation. Why? Because Zayd radiallahu anhu went down, Ja'far radiallahu anhu went down. He was found with 90 wounds on his body. He was very beloved and dear. Zayd and Ja'far were very beloved and dear to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were part of the Ahlul Bayt. So this definitely hurt the Muslim army. And then on top of that, Abdullah ibn Rawaha, he's down. Okay? So their morale was beginning to crack. And that's when Thabit ibn Qais looked up to Khalid and said, hey, you are anyone have a problem? He's our commander. So when he took over, his goal was to engage the enemy for the rest of the day. By the time Abdullah ibn Rawaha was down, it was already the evening time. Okay? So his goal was to engage the enemy for the rest of the day in such a way to avoid heavy casualties and strategically retreat the Muslim cavalry to preserve their strength. Khalid sent out archers to strategic locations on the hills and ordered the rest to slowly bring the fight to the slope of the hill. This is all going on that evening. Bring them closer to the hill. As the Muslims started to regroup around the hill, the archers barraged the enemy forces with arrows. The Byzantine advance was stalled. The Muslims were able to hold their ground. Night fell and the Byzantines returned to their camp. The battle would continue the next day. Now, later that night, Khalid shared his new battle plan to rescue his comrades and save the army. His plan was to come up with a diversion so that the Muslims can retreat without being chased after by the Byzantines. So Khalid had made his mind up that we have to figure out a way to get out. We have to get out of this situation. Okay? Now, he completely reorganized. I shared this with you yesterday, how he swapped all of the flanks around so that when the Byzantines, they assumed formation, they are seeing new faces. Another thing that he did was he ordered several hundred to hide behind the army and behind sand dunes. Their task was to hit the ground and make noise when the Byzantines would start taking their formation. So the next morning, when the Byzantines started, and they see all these fresh faces, and as battle starts, they hear all this noise from around. They see all this dust and sand start to raise. And what happened? They paused, thinking that reinforcements are coming. They already have a fresh batch. So they paused and hesitated from advancing. And this Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu, when he saw this hesitation, he quickly charged. Okay? And they incurred casualties. And then as all this was going on, Khalid radiallahu anhu, he ordered the battalion to start moving back slowly. The Byzantines thought that they were being lured into the desert where all these reinforcements are. They paused, and then once the dust settled, Khalid radiallahu anhu and the Muslims had already reached safe ground, and the Byzantines decided not to chase after them. And this is how the Battle of Mu'tah, okay, reached its end. I shared with you about 12 to 15 Sahaba died. And Khalid radiallahu anhu said that the battle was so intense that he broke 9 swords on that day in battle. Okay. Now, what was going on in Medina? I also shared this with you, that the Prophet ﷺ shared with the people of Medina when Zayd went down, and when Ja'far went down, and when Abdullah ibn Rawaha went down, and he offered all their janazah prayers in Medina to the people of Medina while this was going on. All right. Now, nevertheless, the army arrived back in Medina. After a few days, some people started to criticize the companions who returned. These criticisms either came in the form of insults and smears from the hypocrites, because we cannot assume that the Sahaba would insult the other Sahaba, okay? Or it was either in the form of rebuke from other companions. They were viewing their actions as fleeing from the battlefield, which was against the teachings of Islam. and against the standard and norms of valor and bravery. Khalas, you don't come back, you just die. Okay? Now, some historians mention that this was the reaction of the children of Medina who were not aware of the circumstances of their return. Ha ha, whatever, what kids do, right? So they started to make all of this noise. Nevertheless, I'm sorry. Salama narrates that she asked the wife of Salama, why don't I see Salama praying with the Prophet in congregation? She responded, by Allah, there's no way he can leave the house. Every time he steps out, someone scolds him saying, yo, fugitive. Oh, bagore. Right? Hey, run away. Did you run away from the path of Allah? He had no choice but to come back and sit in the house. He was a participant of Khalid ibn Walid in the Battle of Mu'tah. This is what is mentioned in this particular riwayah. Now, this is in Abu Dawood, Allah's Messenger sent us with a detachment and the people ended up returning in flight. So when we came to Medina, we hid in thinking that we had become corrupted because we ran away. Then we went to Allah's Messenger and told him we were those who fled. Okay? We were the fararun. We were the ones who fled. The Prophet ﷺ said, no. He used the word antumul akkarun. You are the ones who return to fight. After returning, I am your main body. In other words, you did not run away from the battlefield. You just came back to the home base. You came back to the home base. You just returned. Just like in the battle at the end of the day, what does the group do? They go back to the camp. All you did was come back to camp. You're going to be going back. And lo and behold, one of the last things that the last thing that the Prophet ﷺ commissioned before he left was to go back. All right? Tabuk was a different circumstance. Now, it may seem that, okay, so it may seem, now was this a victory or not? What's the verdict? So, one opinion is that this was a victory. How so? How was this a victory? Well, because the Prophet ﷺ said it was a victory. What did he say? Finally, the flag was taken by one of Allah's swords, and Allah gave them victory. So the Prophet ﷺ said it. It's a victory. Regardless of what we may see or how they may have felt, similar to Sulh Hudaybiyah. 1,400 people went. They could not go into Makkah when the whole world could go. When anyone could go, they weren't allowed to go. They stayed there negotiating back and forth. And then when they finally reached a deal, it was not like, okay, the Sulh of Hudaybiyah was heavy in favor of the Quraysh. The Prophet ﷺ told the Sahaba, okay, shave your heads, sacrifice your animals, and let's go back. This is by far probably one of the very rare instances where the Sahaba could not find it in themselves to obey the Prophet ﷺ's command. And guess what? They did not shave their heads. He told them again, they did not shave their heads. He told them again, they did not shave their heads. Finally, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, who accompanied with him in that journey, said, say less. You shave your head and you sacrifice your animal. And as soon as he did that, boom, everyone shaved their heads. And everyone who had an animal shaved. So that scenario, like it got to a point where Umar radiallahu anhu looked at the Prophet ﷺ and said, Alasna ala al-haq, alaysu ala al-batil, like aren't we on the right side of the fence? Why? Why are we subject to this? Why are you accepting these terms? And Umar radiallahu anhu said that I dedicate my entire life of worship and dedication just so I can make up for that moment for that audacity that I showed in front of the Prophet ﷺ. He was so scared for the rest of his life. But what did Allah call that? Inna fatahna laka. He didn't just call it a victory. He said it was a clear victory. And he revealed an entire surah. Okay? Likewise, this was a victory. How so? This battle made the Muslims' presence felt among the Arab Bedouin tribes in the region. Yeah, all those Bedouin tribes, the bandit tribes, yeah. Now they knew that, you can't mess with the Muslims. These guys, they didn't get their butts handed to them by 100,000, 200,000 Byzantines. They made it back safely. Okay? It also displayed that the Muslims challenged the Byzantines in battle. Yes. They didn't just make a U-turn as soon as they found out. They still went. And that means a lot. Thus proving they were a force to be reckoned with and look over your shoulder for. And at no time afterwards did the Byzantine forces look forward to meeting the Muslim forces. This battle inspired great respect for the Muslims amongst the Arabian tribes. So the Byzantines, they did not like later on encroach into the Arabian Peninsula. When you think about it, they could have done it very easily. They could have easily mobilized and went and attacked Medina. But did they? They did not. Okay? Some historians say that it was a defeat, but now, in what sense? Militarily speaking. Why? Because a clear victory was not declared after the battle by the Muslims. Neither were the lands of the Ghassanid taken over. What happens in a battle? Once the battle is over, what is yours? Mikasa, Mikasa, Sukasa, Mikasa. Right? Your house is my house and my house is my house. You take over everything, okay? And the return of the Muslim army. You don't return. You leave some behind and then you come back and then you establish over there. Even if a strategic one, if it was a return, but it's a retreat nonetheless. The army of the victor does not retreat. So, now, some say it was a draw because it wasn't a clear-cut victory for either side. It's not like, now, think about it. 12 people, 12 of 3,000, how much is that in percentage? If 30 people died, it would have been 1%. Okay? Morta math. Right? It was less than 1% in front of what? 100. So, they didn't clearly win. The Muslims didn't clearly win. There were no prisoners of war that were exchanged, etc., etc. So, whatever the case may be, it definitely served. Now, Mu'ta, Jordan. The Battle of Mu'ta took place in a village named Mu'ta. Now, by the way, it's Mu'ta. Everyone say that, especially the Desis. Say that. Mu'ta, not Mut'a. Okay, not the Battle of Mut'a. Mut'a means temporary marriage. Mu'ta, not Mut'a. Okay, the Battle of Mu'ta. No, Mu'ta. Okay, now it's about 85 miles south of Amman in southern Jordan today. See that? Mu'ta is 6 miles south of a city named Al-Karak, which contains some of the oldest Christian communities in the world, dating as early as the 1st century CE. Okay? This is Al-Karak. How far is this? 6 miles north of Mu'ta is Karak Castle. Okay? See these pictures right here? Al-Karak is home to Karak Castle, one of the largest Crusader castles in the Levant. Construction began in 1140s under Fulk, the king of Jerusalem. And these are some pictures that I picked up. After 2 unsuccessful attempts to capture this castle by Salahuddin Ayyubi, it was finally captured by his nephew, Sa'duddin, in 1188. Okay? And, over the Mamluk period and over different empires, things were added. And this is some of the inscriptions of ayat, along with 2 lions, etc. So I want you to see the region of this area. When I explained to you that there was mountains and hills and they kind of squeezed the Byzantines into this area, you can see that for yourself. All right? The citadel of Salahuddin is in Egypt, right? That's in Egypt today. So this was captured by his nephew. You see that? Yeah. This is before being taken over. This is where Muslims were thrown off of. All right? The Crusaders. This is where they were thrown off of. All right? Now, moving forward. The battle site of Mu'ta. You see the red arrow? That is where the Battle of Mu'ta took place. The green arrow is the University of Mu'ta in Jordan. Okay? With many foreign students. The battle site of the Battle of Mu'ta. Okay, this is some structure that perhaps was there, and these are the remnants of it. Now, a few miles south okay, a few miles south of this battle area. Remember, Khalid radiallahu anhu retreated. So after they got to safe grounds, what do you got to do with the deceased? You got to bury them, right? So the city is called Al-Mazar, Jordan. Okay? And the red arrow is the grave of Abdullah ibn Rawaha. The green one is that of Zayd ibn Haritha. And the yellow one is the tomb of Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. There's a masjid. This is across the street from the university over there. It says the site of the Battle of Mu'tah. All right? Now, the tomb of Zayd ibn Haritha, these are some signs that are there. All of this has been commissioned by the current government over there, and there's plaques to make sure that everyone knows. The grave site of Zayd ibn Haritha radiallahu anhu, that's just different shots. I'm going a little fast past this because I don't want to hit 8:30. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة. This is a plaque that explains who the sahib of this place is, Zayd ibn Haritha radiallahu anhu. The tomb of Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, this is a masjid that is located adjacent to that. This is the tomb of Ja'far ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. Right there you can see. Sayyidina Ja'far at-Tayyar. Okay, I'm going to go into this later on, inshallah. Why was he called at-Tayyar? Tayyar, not Tayyar, like in Urdu Tayyar. Tayyar, okay? The tomb of Abdullah ibn Rawaha, there's a sign right there. All right, there's that's the masjid and courtyard around where his tomb is. That is the tomb of Abdullah ibn Rawaha radiallahu anhu. There is some poetry that's on his tomb. That's also another picture, and this as well. These are some of the poetry that he said. If I get time, inshallah, I will share that with you. But my plan is to go over that, but let's see what happens. Abdullah ibn Rawaha, who he was, etc., etc. So, what are some of the things that I'm planning on going over with you in the next couple of days? Because I'm also aware that Christmas is coming. What do we care about Christmas? Well, to get to know Christianity and Isa alayhi salam. All right. So there's a presentation that I have worked on, and I want to continue with that. So some of the things that we talk about is the family of Ja'far, the etiquette of bereavement. So Ja'far radiallahu anhu's kids were orphaned. So how did the Prophet ﷺ, we learn a lot from post-Battle of Mu'tah, how to deal with families who are grieving. What are the etiquettes? Okay? What are the etiquettes of grieving and for visiting those who are grieving? The speech of Ja'far radiallahu anhu, the family of Zayd, Abdullah ibn Rawaha. These are all different branches that I can branch into, and we'll see where it goes, inshallah, from tomorrow night. Jazakumullah khair. I hope that I have been able to set up the stage and paint that picture for you for what the Battle of Mu'tah was, and what was the behind the scenes and the stage of the Ghassanid and etc. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.